For the last 10 years, WatchAthon Week has included hundreds of award-winning shows and movies, and this year is no different. In fact, this year's WatchAthon includes several of this year's Oscar favorites, which Audrey has personally curated into a row of award-winning shows and movies. And each one of us has picked our favorite of the bunch to talk about right now. Audrey, which WatchAthon? Oh, there's the row. Tell us more about it.
There it is, sneak peek. Yep. So, like you said, this year it's really exciting. We have a bunch of award-winning shows and movies that are part of WatchAthon. So if you haven't seen them yet, you can watch them for free. If you've seen them and love them, you get to watch them again for free. So super exciting. And I haven't seen my pick, which I'm going to talk about, The Eyes of Tammy Faye. So Jessica Chastain. Oh, yeah.
Wait, did you say you haven't seen it yet?
What? I haven't. No.
Oh, so good. But don't let me interrupt. We'll talk about it after your little recap, Situ.
Yeah. So basically, Jessica Chastain plays Tammy Faye Baker, who was a noted televangelist here. And it actually is her first Oscar win, her third nomination. Super exciting. It's the look of the extraordinary rise and fall of Tammy Faye Baker. They rose to fame with her husband and the world's largest religious broadcasting network. And I've always had this weird fascination with religion. I grew up going to Catholic school. I could have minored in world religions in college because I took so many religion classes. I know, fun fact.
Love that fun fact. I need to know more about that. We're gonna have to double click on that later.
Sure. So this really was intriguing to me. I think she is just amazing. Andrew Garfield, also amazing. And David knows this, that I love Michael Showalter, who directed this. If you're familiar with Wet Hot American Summer, you will be familiar with him. So yeah, really excited to watch this again for free during WatchAthon. Apparently it gets Rose's resounding endorsement as well. So
I have a fun fact. I grew up in Virginia Beach, and I remember hearing about Tammy Faye and all that stuff. But CBN, the Christian Broadcast Network, was literally a 5-minute drive from the house I grew up in, and I had no clue that was one of the locations. This scandal was happening. I drove by it the other day when I went to visit home, and I'm after watching the movie, I'm oh my God, I had a realization, that's it. I just put 2 and 2 together at that moment recently. But yeah, Audrey, you will not be disappointed. I'm so excited, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it after you watch it.
Yeah, her transformation is also just amazing. She can look like a 16-year-old and her actual age. The obviously makeup that is happening here is phenomenal. So yes, I'm very intrigued, and I've heard great things like you just said.
Yeah, and absolutely. It won the Oscar for hair and makeup as well. And I think that's the best part about this is for me, when I watch biopics, one of the hardest things is losing yourself in that person who's playing that role. That's why I had such a hard time with Spencer and Kristen Stewart, because I just kept seeing Kristen Stewart.
Are you talking about that again?
Throwback.
I loved her.
We'll do it another time. But her Jessica Chastain just disappears into this role. Rose, what is the movie you are most excited about during WatchAthon?
I'm most excited to watch Dune. Now, this is a movie that I actually have watched. Full disclosure, I really had high ambitions to read the book before watching the movie because, the book is always better. That book, when I received it in the mail, had seriously thin pages. And, it's thin pages, it's lots of words, but words very condensed. That book is a dense book. Then I tried to listen to it on audio book. And let's just say the audio company needs to refresh their voiceover. But when I watched it, so remember that this was released during, when people were still home. It was released in theaters and on the small screen on HBO Max. So a lot of people watched it on the small screen. And what I loved about this movie, and I can't wait to experience it again, is the fact that the director, the cinematographer, the way it was shot, they did an outstanding job of having the audience realize how immense this world is. That is not an easy feat to do when you're watching it on a small screen and you're not in the theater. I mean, it's easy to feel the enormity of the location when you have this huge theater screen in front of you and a fantastic sound system. But on a small screen, which I believe most audiences watched it, they still achieved that. And here's a fun fact. They didn't use green screen or blue screen. The director spent time on helicopters really trying to scout out locations so that the actors can feel immersed and grounded in their roles. And it worked. And you will not be disappointed. There is a reason why it won, I think, like 6 Oscars. It won for, let me see, cinematography, editing, visual effects, production design, sound, and score. Hans Zimmer, who did the score for this movie, I love him. Amazing. And all of that put together is in itself such an amazing feat and absolutely worth watching, and not just one time, but multiple times. The story is great too, but just that amazing feat alone, Dune is my pick.
Nice. I fell asleep, but
What?
I'm gonna watch it again.
Stop
I was
it.
like, wait, you
Stop
fell
it.
asleep just now while Rose was talking, or you fell asleep during Dune?
Boy, you fell asleep talking. I'm trying my hardest to motivate this camera here, David.
So let me explain. I had waited until literally the last hours when it was on HBO Max and noticed the last chance to watch. So I started watching at midnight, knowing it was going to expire from HBO Max 3 hours later. So I was watching it from like midnight to 3 a.m. and I fell asleep before I was able to finish it. Then it expired, but now it's back. And it's back on HBO Max, and it's available during WatchAthon. So that is great news.
It's also, I will say, like very dim. The whole movie is like dark and dim. So like that probably didn't help your falling asleep.
No, it didn't.
But
It is on me. It is on me. I waited too long. You're right.
But you get a second chance.
I do. And I am also going to give a second watch to the movie I chose. And that is the 2021 remake of West Side Story, directed by Steven Spielberg. This movie received 7 nominations at this year's Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Cinematography, Best Costume Design, Best Production Design, and Best Sound. And actress Ariana DeBose won a very, very well-deserved Best Supporting Actress Oscar for her performance as Anita, and became the first Afro-Latina and queer woman of color to win the award in that category. And what's really wild about that is that Rita Moreno, who played Anita in the iconic 1961 film adaptation, also won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. So in the future, anyone who plays Anita is basically guaranteed some sort of accolades. It's also worth noting that Rachel Zegler, who played Maria, the role originally played by Natalie Wood in 1961, is also just wonderful in this film. And she's the one actually singing in the movie. Natalie Wood was not back in the day, which is just a whole nother level to her performance. And it's certainly no easy task to adapt a Broadway musical as beloved as West Side Story, and even harder to meet or surpass the look and the sound of the 1961 film, which was directed by Robert Weiss and Jerome Robbins. But I think Steven Spielberg did a really wonderful job of building this rich, colorful world, and an even better job of perfecting all of those big song and dance beats that fans expected. Like, you have to do those things right to succeed. And as you can see in this clip, like, they're nailing it. It's spectacular. If you're a West Side Story fan, or even if you've never heard of it at all, if you're young out there, you've never seen it, never heard of it, I don't think you'll be disappointed by checking this out during WatchAthon. It's a great time to do it. Did either of you
not fall asleep?
No.
Yes.
How could you fall asleep during this?
I have not seen the original or this.
Wow.
And I know little to nothing about it.
Interesting. I would start with the most recent.
Yeah, it's a Romeo and Juliet story.
Yeah.
I think if you watch this version, you might not like the original. I don't know.
I agree
It's
with that.
just, I don't know. It feels like of its time. I'll say that. But like, this is definitely a little more, plus it's just a little more polished. It's beautiful, like 4K transfer. If you're watching it, I mean, it's just,
Was it shot on actual film or was it digital?
I don't know. Brad, was this
Oh.
was this West Side Story shot on film or digital? I think it was digital, honestly.
Well, you had me at Romeo and Juliet because that is my jam. So I guess I'll add it to my WatchAthon list.
That's basically what it is. It's a Romeo and Juliet story.
Yeah, but told in a fantastical way.
Brad says it
Absolutely.
was shot on 35mm film.
Even better. I'm a huge fan of things that are just shot on film. The lighting looks better. It creates such moods and depth and these fun, crazy, dark corners that engulf you into that movie going experience. There's something it's like you can't put your finger on it, but you know a movie's good as soon as you see the quality of it when you're like, oh, something's different. And it's probably, I would think it's because it's shot on film. I love movies that are shot on film. So yeah,
I agree
definitely.
with you, Rose. And not to go on a tangent, but there's a drive-in theater. We actually talked about this last week when we were talking about Nick Cage. And there's a drive-in theater nearby, like 90 minutes from Philly, that only shows films on 35mm. And it's like the chance where you can see all these old things that maybe you've only seen in like poor digital transfers and see them exactly as the filmmaker intended. And I went and saw Ninja Turtles, no surprise, the 1990 Ninja Turtles on 35mm film.
I love that.
A cinematic classic.
The filmmaker
Oh my God.
It's a cinematic classic that must be watched on 35mm.
No other way.
No other way.
Exactly.
All three of these movies and so much more are available for free from HBO Max during this year's WatchAthon, May 3rd through the 9th. Just say WatchAthon into your voice remote to check them out.